got a great film to play, just
Hello? Have you ever snubbed a lady?
we had a technical problem.
Are we on?
Yeah, we're on there.
Can I swear? Shit!
Welcome to Crunch and Roll, tales from the dysfunctional world of radio told by the people who have been there, done that, and when asked what's your favourite smell, the answer, of course, is that fresh copy of Extracts. How good was that? I'm John Fox, and in a former life, I've spent 2 decades presenting breakfast shows all over England before hanging up my headphones a couple of years ago. Now, on this podcast, I chat to some of the most interesting people from radio who are on air now or made their name back in the day. There'll be incredible stories, brutal honesty, juicy revelations, big old laughs, and even the odd tear. Now, let's try a little call and response. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Cam and Kevin and oh, you're good. And today's guest must have been good to have stayed in the collective radio consciousness for over 20 years. It is, of course, Sally Bailey. Sally was one half of 2 iconic double acts presenting equally iconic shows on Galaxy, Red Dragon, and every single One Network GCAP station with the massive music control show. No big deal. Nowadays, she's one of the most recognisable voices on the scene, selling us everything from Sky TV to Pucker Pies. In this episode, Sally tells us about a run-in with the Queen of Pop, an audition with a big-name presenter that she describes as abysmal, and a boss who she's annoyed about making her try harder. Oh, and listen to the very end for a bonus question I had to ask. Before we start, just our regular reminder that if you do enjoy the podcast and you are a regular listener, then we'd be eternally grateful, as always, for any support you can give us on Ko-fi. Just go to ko-fi.com/crunchandroll.
Oh, yeah.
Sally, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Yeah, all good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I just feel that we need to talk about the elephant in the room, the fact that you're actually stood in a proper voiceover booth, stood up with a padded cell around you. I mean, is this in your house?
Yeah, so it's in my loft, but it's actually in my bedroom. So, yeah, I know. And I have people saying, can we come around and, sit in? And I'm like, absolutely not.
Well, it's an incredible setup you've got there.
It's done the job. I've been voiceovering for, is that an expression? For 11 years now, and it's fine. I always look at other people's studios though, and I go, I have such jealousy about other people's big studios. But no, it's done me fine. Gets really hot though.
I bet it does. There's no windows in there at all.
No, and I can't have any sort of fan or anything because of the noise. So, yeah. I do often do it in... Yeah, anyway, carry on.
Wow, okay.
I've been known in the summer to... Yeah.
So, I mean, are you a radio anorak at all?
God, no. No, and this is what worries me about this, John, because, no, I'm not. I don't... No, I never have been. I fell into radio. I mean, how lucky am I that I did? I wasn't Cam, who I used to work with, did the classic in his bedroom with a hairbrush... doing the top 40 from when he was 5. But I never wanted to get into radio. I just literally was very, very lucky. So no. And yeah, you'd think I might pay attention once I got into the industry, but no, I'm not an anorak at all.
So is it true that you studied drama? You've got a degree in drama from Surrey Uni.
Yes, I'm a thesp. Yes, no, and I was dreadful at that because I wanted to do behind the scenes. I wanted to do sort of wardrobe or lighting, but we all did so badly. The university that I went to, it was Roehampton Institute at the time. It did become Surrey University, but we were all dropouts. Basically, none of us had got into the unis that we wanted to get into. And the drama course was blooming awful, and yeah, I was really bad at it. So yeah, I came out with a tutu and didn't know what to do, and so I got into radio by just not knowing what else to do, and I just went to Fox FM. And initially, the reason I went there was because I wanted to be their mascot. I wanted to be in the Fox costume, going to all their gigs that they used to do.
So
that's how I fell into radio.
So let me just go right. So I forgive me, I didn't ask. Whereabouts are you from originally? Are you from Bristol?
So born in Birmingham, but only there for 6 months. And
really?
Then,
okay.
Yeah, and then moved all around, but mostly grew up in a place called Tame, which is on the outskirts of Oxford. Went to uni in London, and then ended up in Bristol because I used to work. I was a waitress in Brown's restaurant. Yes. So and I'd worked in Oxford Brown's and moved to Bristol. And then again, just because I'd worked at Fox, I then went to Galaxy 101, which was the best radio station in the world. Please agree with me.
I have said many times on Crunch and Roll that Galaxy was an incredible brand. One of which that I was never lucky enough to be part of. Before we get on to Galaxy, talk about Fox. So what did you just knock on the door? Did you hang around?
I knocked on the door. I met an amazing guy. Have you ever heard of a guy called Mickey Anotta?
No.
He was their sports guy. And basically, he took me under his wing. And I worked on their news. They used to do an hour of news, which was, it used to be timed to perfection. God, the good old days when they used reel to reel. And every news piece was timed to perfection. And they put me on I was supposed to be sorting the books out, and after about a week they went, "You've ruined everything. You've booked people when we can't have them booked in." So I was like, "Can I go and do I basically went round with again, I wouldn't know what it was called, but the old school sort of
It was like you're giving me the V's there, Sally.
It's play and record on an old cassette tape. And I used to go and do the Amdram. So I'd go and do little drama pieces for this hour-long news piece at 6:00 every night on Fox FM. And I loved it. But again, when they put me live on air, which was my first ever time, was at Fox, when I did a sports commentary, and I just hyperventilated. So how the heck I've had a career because there's another, if we come on to it later, I hyperventilated at Galaxy as well when I went on. And so how I've had a career in radio, I've no idea.
So how long were you at Fox? Because I'm going to be honest, Fox was another station because that was a great station in its day, wasn't it?
It was fantastic. It was all voluntary. I was probably there for about a year. And like I said, just doing. Well, I did hilariously. So Mickey Anotta, who's the guy I spoke about, he used to take me to all the sports places. So I interviewed Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello. I did because it was obviously Oxford area. We did the Formula One. But we were sat on top of a double-decker bus listening to all the other commentators and nicking all their stuff because we couldn't see anything. But I did get to interview some amazing people, and then I did golf as well, which know nothing about golf, and I had to commentate on that. So thrown in at the deep end, but he was fab. And then I kind of found my feet when I did the drama stuff. And then yes, I moved up north for 6 months, and then came down to Bristol, like I said, and started working again voluntarily for about 2 years at Galaxy.
For 2 years?
Yeah. So I was working at Brown's I'd do the morning shift, go in to do event, and then go and volunteer at Galaxy, come back, do an evening shift at Brown's, and then so I did. Yeah, it was bonkers. But you're young, John, so I could do it all.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out how you survived, how you lived, how you put food on the table. I mean, everything was just for free.
Lots of booze and smash and sweet corn.
But let's talk about Galaxy because, Galaxy, I mean, obviously I'm from Hull, so I spent a lot of time listening to Galaxy 105. It was... Yeah. Just an incredible radio station, and as it was for all the Galaxies. I mean, just talk me through, when you actually got on air.
So like I said, I was volunteering, and I used to do their What's On. So I'd do a little 1 minute. There's a garden fete in Nemnet Thrubwell this week. Nemnet Thrubwell was my favourite place, and so I'd do this little I did their What's On. And then I started doing the breakfast promos, making them, which was just a load of odd noises to the point where my boss at the time, can't remember who it was, said, you've got to give, there's got to be a little bit more to the promo than just weird noises that the presenter made. And then lovely Philippa Tank, because those were the days when you had a travel person with a punny name, Philippa Tank. she was sick one day, so they needed someone to cover, and so I went in and did the travel. And then it just went from there. I started off as travel, and then I got on really well with the breakfast presenter, Nikki, who's, I want to say Ferretti, terribly, my memory. Anyway, he was amazing. He left. Elliot Webb.
Yes.
The fabulous Elliot Webb joined. I loved working with him. That was my first proper, we were I was on the breakfast show proper then, so I was not just doing the travel, I was doing little bits and bobs. And I used to do the 6 to 7 hour, because he didn't want to get up that early. So I'd do the hour before him, and then he'd come in and we'd do the breakfast show together. We filled the studio with sand once. I think it was because we were doing a holiday giveaway or something. But can you imagine? Literally the entire studio filled with probably a foot of sand.
Yeah, I think Elliot did talk about exactly the same story. Didn't you? You got a bit of a ticking off, didn't you, for doing that?
Oh my God. Well, I mean, someone was aware that we were filling the studio with sand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They saw us do it. But yeah, it absolutely broke the studio. Of course it did. It's wet sand, or at least, moist. But Elliot was, oh my goodness, what an intro into radio he was. That was amazing. And then he left me for BRMB.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Cam Kelly came along. And and that was the start of a blooming awesome friendship and work relationship.
When I go through obviously now you're on your own, but did you spend all of your radio career with Cam?
No, I then had, look at me, Elliot, Cam, Kevin Hughes, the loveliest man. So Cam and I had Galaxy breakfast together. And oh my God, those are the days when we went to Disney World in America and just had a jolly, because we just got to the front of the queue every time. We got dined and wined and dined, and it was we went to Jamaica where I was doing the travel. So we were doing breakfast, but we were doing it in the evening. It's an all-inclusive Sandals resort. I was doing the travel from a jacuzzi being given champagne at, so it was 6 o'clock our time in the afternoon, in the evening, but it was breakfast. So, I have to say, Cam and I, a lot of our shows were either very hungover or possibly still a little drunk from whatever had been happening. So it was the best of times. And we spent, because in those days, so we were Galaxy 101, so it was South Wales in the west. And so we had to, because we were based in Bristol, we were really conscious of sort of Somerset and Wales being on our patch, but us not actually coming from there. So we'd always do gigs. So for years, we'd do the breakfast show, we'd do the prep for the next day. And then in the evenings, and it would be weekdays as well, not just weekends, we'd go to a club in Newport or down in Taunton, do lovely games like making people drink pints out of a sock. Honestly, the things we did in those days. Yeah, really classy. And so, so we'd almost be spending, not 24 hours, but we spent so much time in each other's company. And those were the days as well when we got to go and do proper interviews in London. Like we went up to London to do George Michael and J-Lo and Destiny's Child and Madonna. So, we spent a heck of a lot of time together, but it was awesome. Luckily, he was my best mate, so it worked. Sorry, what question did you ask, John? I've got serious verbal diarrhea.
Sally, it's great, honestly, genuinely.
Okay.
It's just great to hear the story. I'm going to be honest with you. I did get in touch with Cam ahead of your episode.
Did you?
And I just said, look, is there anything about Sally that I should know about? And he sent me quite a long list. Do you mind if I pick out some of them?
Please
to see if it does jog your memory? It starts by saying Madonna made you cry, apparently.
She did. You see, honestly, anyone who knows me knows this story, because it is something to dine out on, isn't it?
Yeah.
She was... Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah, of course you can.
Can I?
Yeah.
Wanker. She was a wanker.
Oh, she was she?
Oh my God. So I'd already got myself in a bit of a state because obviously when we said we were interviewing Madonna, everyone was like, oh my God. And I've never, again, like you said earlier, am I an anorak? I'm not a fan either. I've never fanatically been into artists or singers or, they've never actually, which is probably a good thing. Because I never felt really intimidated by anyone that we interviewed, really. But everyone made such a big deal. And then I'd written my questions out, which Cam probably hadn't because he never bloody did. Whereas Kevin Hughes, amazing interviewer.
Have that, Cam.
Yeah. He knows I love him. But I'd written all my questions, and people said to me, whatever you do, don't ask her a question that she can just answer yes or no to, because she will literally just say yes or no. So again, I'd had all this hype, all this build-up, and then I was like, oh my God, can she answer yes or no to that? So I was frantically changing my questions right before we went in, and I think we'd been given a 5-minute slot with her. And have you ever interviewed her, John?
No, I have not.
Right.
No.
She's fierce. I mean, you can see she's fierce even without interviewing her. And she just had a face like a slapped arse as soon as we walked in. And then she just, every question I asked her, she threw it back at me. And I think she'd only had Rocco, and I asked her if she was going to, which, in this day and age, I wouldn't actually ask someone, a woman, if she was going to have more children. I absolutely wouldn't. But back in the day, it sort of was, I don't know, we weren't quite so thoughtful in those days. So I'd said, oh, you going to have any more children? And she, absolutely. Have you got children? And at the time I did, and I said no. She said, well, why are you asking me? She was furious with me. And then the interview ended, and I just got outside, and I just burst into tears because it was just horrible. And her people were constantly sort of making gestures in the background. And then the worst thing was, John, so we've got this interview, which from my point of view was awful, but we'd taken an omnidirectional mic and we had it facing the wrong way. We had it, so we were supposed to not have it facing her, because obviously it was facing her. So she was like that anyway. So it was, I can't even remember if we played it out, because the quality was so awful.
Giuliano and I, when we were at BRB, there was only BRB and Radio 1 that had the opportunity to interview Alicia Keys. It was huge. I mean, she was massive at the time. And
okay.
We forgot to hit record.
Oh, shit. Oh, no. What did you do?
There was no way we could have polished that. It was just a massive cock up. We messed up. But it was just. But it's funny. I think everybody who has been in radio, of course, as listeners, they hear these interviews and they've been edited and they sound fine and all the awkward bits are taken out. But you've brought back the memories there of. I used to hate it when the record people were stood behind and giving you hand gestures, saying time, because you just can't
wrap it
can't
up.
get into the. Yeah, I hate it.
No.
Stop now.
Yeah.
You've completely killed the conversation.
Yeah, but also, do you know something I was thinking of the other day? And sorry, you'll notice I keep going off on tangents. Interviewed Robbie Williams about four or five times. Adorable. And I hope there were lots of things that were bothering him at the time, I think, Right, anyway,
okay, yeah.
The last one I did with him, I was on my own. I can't remember why it must have been Kevin, actually, because I was pregnant with my son. And I went up to interview him, and I can't remember who he'd been seeing, but my bosses at the time, who shall remain nameless, were like, you've got to ask him about his sex, essentially his sex life, his love life. But we'd been specifically told, do not ask about any of his romantic dealings. He doesn't want to talk about it. Fair enough, If someone says, I do not want to go into my personal life. But again, back in those days, and I felt pressure because I thought, well, I've got to approach it. And so, of course, someone who I'd interviewed quite a few times, and he did remember me. I mean, he wouldn't obviously now, but at the time he remembered me. And we'd kind of built up a rapport over the last few interviews. And I pissed him off because I'd been told to ask him these questions. And so, understandably, his PR lady was, I think it was Claire. Was it Claire? Lovely, lovely Claire. Anyway, she was like, that's not okay, and was sort of making the, slashing the neck gesture. And I felt really shit. I felt awful that I wish I'd had the strength to say to my bosses, no, not going to do it. I just want a really nice chat with him. Because that's what we'd had before. And that's just, I feel quite dirty about that, John, if I'm honest. I left a sour taste in my mouth.
You're fine now.
I am over it. It's a good 20 years ago or something.
Yeah.
Get over it, love.
This is
Seriously.
like a therapy session. I love it.
I know, I'm really sorry. Right, you have got to tell me to shut up and just...
Never. This is great. I just want to be... Because obviously, you know, we move on to Red Dragon and Core Control, etc. But let's just stick with Galaxy. What was it about Galaxy that, you know, you loved so much?
Freedom. So those are the I mean, the marketing. If I remember rightly, when Galaxy 101 launched, we had the 101, and the marketing for it, I'm sure the 0 was a boob with a nipple showing, which back in the day, we had so many complaints about it, but it felt really fresh and amazing and just like, wow. And Steve Parkinson, amazing boss. It just was, I don't know, it just felt free. And I mean, you know, dance and R&B, not my idea of, you know, it's not my kind of, it's not what I want to listen to at 6 o'clock in the morning, certainly. But it was still brilliant music, but it was more all the stuff they did around it, the PR they did. My old lodger, Luke, was one of the, see, I can't remember, they weren't called ground crew. But he had to dress up as a sperm one time and go up to Clifton Suspension Bridge. Can't remember why. Might have been doing something with Durex. But it was, you know, obviously 70s, 80s radio is the heyday. But we were still in the heyday of radio, certainly working for Galaxy 101 then, because it felt like anything was possible and you could get away with anything and your bosses would pretty much be behind you. And, you know, it was just, yeah.
Is it true that you met your husband at an OB?
Yes. So, you know, I said earlier about the fact that Cam and I were either hungover or possibly slightly tipsy a lot of our career together, which is a terrible thing to admit to. So like I said before, we were very conscious of being in Wales. So I think it was our 5th birthday, we were going to do a party in Bar Ha Ha in Cardiff, and with Sophie Ellis-Bextor as our guest. And we had listeners because our listeners were the best. But the night before we were checking it out, doing a recon, and we were staying in the hotel opposite. And yes, I spotted my husband across the bar, who was with a mate, and I went and bought him a beer and slammed it down on the table, and his mate came up to me. He was like, "Oh, you know, Alan," and I was like, "No, it's not you. It's him." Anyway, and then I plied him with vodka Red Bull for the rest of the night. And the next morning, I could barely say a word on the show. Cam carried me that entire show, and Sophie Ellis-Bextor, who is adorable. I don't think I even spoke to her because I would have just absolutely reeked of vodka Red Bull and probably would have slurred. So yes, but the lovely side of that awful story is it's a really romantic one to tell my kids now. And that's how I met your father. Picked him up in a bar and was totally shameful the whole next morning. But yeah, so yes, 20 odd years later, Now,
you know, of course, you work with Cam for a long time, and Cam talks about you so highly. He absolutely loves you. Because I was very fortunate in my time to work with 2 guys who, both of which I got on with like brothers, and we argued like brothers. Don't get me wrong, but we were really close friends.
Yeah.
I just wondered how important that relationship was with Cam. You know, to make your show so successful, to go on to bigger and bigger things.
Yeah. Oh no, I adore the bones of him. And I think that is why we did okay, because oh my God, we had some really dreadful features. You know, Men in Beige.
Tell me about Men in Beige. What's that?
Well, I can't even remember. But I know we took Men in Black and we thought we're going to do a really dull... I don't know, but we thought it was funny. And I had Dr. Baylittle, which was, again, that was me just talking to the animals, but with the wrong... if I was talking to a pig, I'd bark at it. We had some really terrible features, but for some reason we kept getting employed and kept having brilliant listeners, figures. And I think it is because I think people knew that we were mates, and I think that's nice to listen to. I think it came across that we were, we really liked each other. And there was only one time when we had literally in all those years, And all those hours of working together, there was one time when I lost my temper a little bit with him because he was being an absolute dick. And he will say he was being... But, we're very, very lucky.
What Cam says is that even when Sally was really angry at me, before calling me a name, she would always prefix it with, "I love you, Cam Kelly, but you are a ...
Yeah. But he says, that happened once.
Oh, did it?
It literally, that was the only time we fell out. And it was over something really silly, but he was being a ...
With you and Cam, being on Galaxy and Core and Red Dragon, I mean, you were well known. You were like celebrities, weren't you, Sally?
Yes, we were. But, well, I mean, as you must know, John, I mean, the thing is, because you're on radio, your face doesn't get seen a lot. I mean, we did have some marketing. We were on the back of a bus. We had some postcards done where I remember the photographer saying, I just had my hair cut, and the photographer saying to Gordon, our PR guy, how are we going to make her look pretty? Which was really awful. But anyway, and we had my bunny in that particular campaign. But so we didn't get recognised in the street. I got recognised once because I laughed in the street and someone said, God, are you Sally? But obviously, generally speaking, people didn't know our faces. But we did do a lot of amazing events. So we did the balloon fiesta where the Clifton Suspension Bridge, they were worried it was going to collapse because so many people were coming to see Steps. But the weirdest one we ever did was, I can't remember whether it was Weston or Barry Bados, but we had Peter Andre and Mark Morrison were the two big acts. And the girls arrived, I think it started about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and the girls arrived and they stood at the front and they wet themselves because they didn't want to lose their spot at the front. It was insane. And again, the crowds that we pulled, and so that certainly wasn't for Cam and I, but from the Stars and Galaxy especially, that had a massive pull while we were there. The station itself was just cool. And actually the hilarious thing is Cam and I were the uncoolest people that you could possibly, there were lots of very cool, like Deli G, they had really cool people on the station and Paul Conroy even, but Cam and I, so uncool. But it worked for a while.
Is this going out or is it just in our headphones?
The hamster's fine.
It was a technical problem. You heard something on air you shouldn't have done.
Oh, yeah.
On your CV, in 1998, you present a local TV show for HTV, Back to Base. Was that on your own or was that with Cam as well?
Back to Base, 11:30, Thursday nights, quiz show. Everyone's there. It was me and Cam. The deal was they spent all the editing money on the opener. So we were basically told that we weren't allowed to fuck up because they didn't have the money to edit it afterwards. So what Cam would do, the very first show we did, because we'd been on the breakfast show and I was always used to saying morning, bear in mind this is going at 11:30 p.m. on a Thursday night, the very first thing I say, and it gets kept in, is good morning. Cam, however, any time he said something he didn't like, he'd then swear, so they had to stop and they had to start again. And I never had the gumption, shall we say, to do that. So, little bugger. But it was brilliant and we had such a giggle. But, Telly, I mean, he was dreadful and he will say that. He was a poor... They used to call him Cuprinol Man but I was equally bad. But I think I don't know, I didn't get as much abuse as he did for his presenting skills. We weren't made for telly.
The pressure there that you couldn't mess up because they couldn't afford to edit it. That is incredible.
I know. It was insane. Yeah.
So I've got a few TV shows. You did Back to Base, and we heard a little bit of the opener there, which was wonderful, Sally. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Blissed Out.
Blissed Out was like a local version of... I was going to say Jim will fix it. I don't want to say Jim will fix it. But basically... Really
no
wasn't
wonder that was canned.
Really wasn't that. No, but it was basically you were sort of doing things for you were almost granting wishes for kids, I think. So you were, I know. So it was, and I remember, oh my God, we did a Christmas show and the Father Christmas was furious because it took so many hours, and he was obviously dressed in his Father Christmas outfit, boiling hot, and it took so long to record. And yeah, he was the grumpiest Father Christmas I've ever come across. Not happy, but it was a great show. It was fun to do.
In 2001, I've got Party in the Square again for HTV. What was that?
That was just like there was a party going on, and we were doing local sort of newsy bits back to the studio.
Okay, so I mean, whilst you're doing these TV shows, are you still on Galaxy 101?
Yep. So exactly. So it was. Yeah, like I said, we were in each other. Cam and I were. I didn't do Blissed Out with him, but we were in each other's pockets for years. But he's lush.
Well, you
so
both
it's okay.
are. You both are. So, I mean, 2002, you moved to GCAP to go and present Core Control, which was across 34 stations, one of which was 210 FM, which, of course, I was doing breakfast on at the time. I remember you very, very well. Can you remember that move? Because, I mean, you talk about Galaxy 101 so fondly. Was that a difficult move to make?
Well, yes. And basically, I just followed Cam. I mean, I don't mean that. We did obviously come up with the decision. But Dirk Anthony had been trying to woo us for quite a while. And we eventually... And I think Mike Cass, by that point, who is now my boss again and the most brilliant man, but I think he'd kind of got to the end of his tether. He'd had to tell us off too many times for misbehaving, that I think he was ready to let us go by that point, understandably. And so it was the right time to change. And it was very weird, especially to go from breakfast to evening. And we were doing something at the time that was so, I was going to say revolutionary. That's a bit strong, isn't it? But, the whole text-based, you decide I mean, obviously people didn't. It's a nice idea. I mean, the chart was based on what people voted for, but it was at the time. I think it was a real sort of what's the word I'm looking for? It was the first of its kind, I think, apart from maybe in America. But it was great fun. I lost a lot of we didn't get, obviously, because it wasn't breakfast, we didn't do as many features, and so I felt like I lost a lot of me when we did that show. And even with Kevin, who is the most adorable man in the world. And bless him, having worked with, it was a lot for him to come into working with me. Kevin is a saint and an angel. And but I never quite suited that format, I don't think, because I lost the fun side of it. Was more about music, which is great, don't get me wrong, but I loved the breakfast I loved doing breakfast shows because it was fun, and I kind of missed that with Core Control.
It's interesting you say that, because as a listener you'd never have heard that, would you?
Really?
Oh yeah, as a listener you would never know that you felt inside that you'd lost a little bit of yourself, because I kind of understand that. When we moved from 210 to BRMB, we went from breakfast to drive, very different show, and it is strange, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know how else to describe. I mean, the thing is, that show was incredible, and I think we kind of did the first interviews with Busted and McFly. So my God, that show, we did some incredible interviews. So in some ways, I loved it because I've always loved interviewing people. That was something weird. So I got pregnant in my last year with Kevin. And again, I wasn't allowed to announce it. This is how far things have changed, So all the photos, we never spoke about me being pregnant on air. I'm so glad it's changed. And people talk about everything, mental health, everything is discussed on air now, which I think is bloody marvellous. But then... No, Kevin literally announced me being pregnant and I was leaving on my last show.
Why was that? Why were you not?
I have no idea. I don't know. But, sort of, it was very weird. I think maybe it wasn't just the fact that it was breakfast to evening, but maybe things had changed. I got married. I was, obviously thinking about having kids. So it could have been a whole host of things. But I do think the format changes things as well, like you said.
Did you ever feel the pressure of being on so many stations? Because, it was a huge 34 stations is a lot, isn't it?
Only when we used to have to do the local things for you guys, because we'd have to come in. So the show was, I think it was 7 till 10. we'd have to come in at midday because we had to do local links to try and persuade people that we were actually in your area. So 34 stations, we'd have to do, was it 6? How many did we? Anyway, we had to do loads and loads. And at the beginning, we had to do them exactly to time. They had to be 30 seconds long. Can you imagine how long that took us? It was hell. Trying to convince people that we were local, which was such a silly thing to do. People are clever. Listeners are cleverer than that. I'm sure they knew that we weren't local. But it was, but it possibly worked, and it was kind of lovely to do. But that took a lot of time. So I don't think it was really nice to be kind of national because, yeah, I don't know. It just, we didn't, we'd always felt like we wanted to make everyone feel like they were part of it. So I think being bigger almost made it easier to include more people, does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a hell of an achievement, and it was a huge show, wasn't it? It was a massive show. So tell me about, was there next a potential move to London for you, or did you try out for London?
So, yes. So before Kevin started on Core Control, which became Music Control, I went up to London to do a really abysmal audition with Johnny Vaughan. He asked me the question, what would you want on your gravestone? And I just panicked and I went, that I was nice. And he just went pathetic and just moved on. I thought, oh my God, he hates me. And actually, it was a really good audition in the sense that I gave him something. I'd seen something on the tube that morning saying 1 in 6 people are millionaires. So you're very likely sitting in the same carriage as a millionaire. And I mentioned this to Johnny, and of course that gave him the opportunity to talk about his best mate who owned Carphone Warehouse or something. Oh, really? So I think I did okay, but no, lovely Zoe she carried on with the brand, but I didn't want to move to London anyway because frankly I had too many skeletons in my closet, and I thought if I become even remotely tiny a little bit famous, all those skeletons could come out. So I didn't want it anyway, and then I got to work with Kevin for 2 years, so that was brilliant.
So let's talk about Red Dragon. So in 2007, you moved to Red Dragon again, a huge radio station. Can you remember why? What happened? The process moving to Red Dragon?
So my daughter was 6 months. So I'd had my son, and he was 2, and my daughter was 6 months old, and then Colin Jackson, another amazing boss, thought it would be a good idea to try and get Cam and Sally back together again because we'd had 5-year hiatus, or no, can't have been 3-year hiatus. So they'd already spoken to Cam, and then they rang me and said, would you? And I was like, don't be bloody ridiculous. I've got a 6-month-old baby. No. And then I met with Colin, and he was charming. And I thought, oh God, this could work. And then bless my husband, because he was on the oil rigs at the time. And he honestly thought it would be, like retiring to look after 2 small children. Oh, how wrong he was.
What a mistake that was.
What an idiot. But it allowed me. I slept on a futon for 4 years, got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to drive from Bristol to Cardiff, got about 30 speeding tickets because it was anyway, that's another story. But yeah, bloody exhausting. And then I'd come home at like 2 and have to and take over from my husband who was like, yeah, have the baby. Yeah. But I did that. I don't know how on earth I had the energy to do that. And I'd take my toothbrush because I didn't want to go upstairs, and because my kids were really light sleepers. So I'd take my toothbrush with me and clean my teeth at work because, I didn't want to wake them up.
Can we talk about because you did take a career break to have your children. I mean, because I was a freelancer for many years. I remember that fear of even just taking a week off to go on holiday. You, was that a big decision?
Well, no, because again, I was still doing, was it Disco Divas? I did a Saturday night pre-recorded show, which was amazing. I loved it. So I still had my hand in. And then I did something called, I can't remember, but I sort of started on Red Dragon. I was doing a weekend show before I got the breakfast show. So I still had my hand in radio. But yeah, being, it's terrifying. I know exactly what you mean about, taking time off. And you're terrified about whoever fills in for you, because what if they're really, really good and everybody loves them more than me?
The first thing you do when you return off a week away or however long is you check the text to make sure that the cover presenter hasn't had more love. Is that true?
100%. Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. But Red Dragon was amazing.
I mean, what was it like getting the band back together, moving, getting back with Cam? Was that, did it from the moment you saw each other, you got back in the studio, were you off again as you left it?
Yeah, pretty much. I guess it's just always that thing when you start on a brand new radio station that you want people to love you. And so both of us just kept saying we want to be 6 weeks in, because then we'll have our feet under the table and we'll feel more comfortable. But actually working together was, we were, again, lucky, just straight back into to having a laugh. And we did.
Did Men in Beige make it a return?
No. Dead and buried where it should be. No, I'm trying to think we just, we had a laugh. And again, we did lots of interviews, and I'm trying to think, I can't actually terribly, I'm trying to think what features we did do on Red Dragon. They weren't that memorable, obviously.
Do you know the one thing I love the most about you, Sally, is I asked you at the start if you are a radio anorak, which you say you're not. I don't think you ever became an anorak. I think you were just there for the fun and the giggles.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And thank you, because I absolutely. And the thing is, I got to work with the best people. So I think if I'd been working with other people, I'd have got out of radio years ago. If I hadn't had the luck that I did have to work with the guys that I did, and it was mostly guys, I'd have loved to work. I did do a couple of shows with some females, ladies, but it was all, it's that classic male-female double header. But, I just lucked out, essentially. But yes, absolutely, fun and giggles.
And, we've talked about Red Dragon a few times on various episodes of Crunch and Roll. Again, really special radio station as well, wasn't it?
It really was. It really was. And when the whole Capital thing came about, it was hard, because we knew how much they loved Red Dragon, and it was such a heritage station. It was a really... it was quite a dangerous thing to do. It was a very brave thing for them to do. But, we did, and it took a long while for people to get used to it.
And then you spend 4 years at Red Dragon, and then you leave the industry.
Yes, we got
to become a full-time voiceover, which is what you do now.
Yes. Incredibly
successful, doing voices for some major people. Was that tough to leave the industry?
No, by that point, we were shoved out right royally. We were too old, because it had become Capital. Understandably, how old were we? I was certainly mid-40s by that point. On a Capital, it was just wrong. So, totally get why they got rid of us. But at the time, it hurt.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So yes, it did. But no, and Cam wanted to move back up north, and I was like, absolutely not. And I thought that's it. And I was very lucky. Oh God, Shelley, a producer, suggested I do voiceovers, and I was like, no way, I'll be rubbish. And then she gave me some scripts, and then because I'd worked in radio, I was so lucky I got an in that way. And so lots of amazing producers from Global and Bauer, used me. And I've had a great career for the last 11 years, but never thought I'd get back into radio. I was like, absolutely not. And certainly not doing it on my own, because I was always I think what I was, as well as being there for the fun and giggles, was I'm good at reacting. So I didn't ever like doing shows on my own, because I've got nothing.
It's weird.
Well,
it is weird.
I say that I've got nothing to say, having just spoken relentlessly for the last.
No, but I completely understand. So when I went to Signal and then I went to the BBC, I was a solo presenter, and suddenly my safety net was gone. I felt so exposed on my own, and there was no one there to laugh at my really shit jokes. It was weird.
Did you ever get used to that? Did you find your feet? Really?
I never really enjoyed it as much as I did when I was with a team. I just loved working with other people. Yeah.
Absolutely, because you bounce off them, and it's more fun, definitely. Yeah. But I think that's why a lot of solo presenters will have a producer in with them that they then bounce off. But if it depends where you're working, whether you have that luxury of having a producer. But that's it. Yeah. So we're similar in that way.
I mean, you're a full-time voiceover, and you kind of kiss goodbye to radio, and then you've become the mids presenter on Virgin Radio Chilled. Is that with Mike Cass as well then? So
that was a Cam Kelly Mike Cass collaboration.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So voiceover work, because of COVID and AI, my voiceover work has just gone. It's I still get the occasional job, but it's not like it used to be. It was, like you said, I was full time. It was amazing, but it's just plummeted. So I'd said to Cam, and he was like, well, have a chat with Mike. And I was like, no, I don't want to get back into radio. And then we had it was a Galaxy reunion. We had a Galaxy reunion, and Mike came up to me and said, go on. I was like, oh, and then basically, I love it. Mm. Oh my God. Well, I do a lot of prep. I need to do a lot of prep. I haven't got the gift of the gab, so I can't just talk about anything. I have to write things down a lot. But oh my God, I'm loving the music. Like I said, so yeah, Galaxy 101, dance and R&B, not my particular thing. Virgin Chilled, yes please. It's all piano versions and acoustics. I love it. So yeah, I'm having a ball actually.
You mentioned AI there. Just please treat me like somebody that knows nothing about AI. So people are now getting AI to do voiceovers. Is that how it's working?
I mean, I could be wrong, and all the people that I've worked with over the years, all the clients and producers, might just suddenly hate me and not want to use me anymore. But I just think it's that thing of, there was the whole thing with Stephen Fry being used, his voice being used, Scarlett Johansson. It's got so good now that I think a lot of companies, where they would have come to me before, they can now just put it into Chat GPT and get a voice that sounds just near enough. Now, I listened to an audiobook, and I knew. I mean, she said, what was it she said? She was supposed to be saying, ugh, but she said, erg. Because and that, and she kept doing, and she said shone instead of shone. And so, and also I just knew it was an AI voice. But actually, after listening, it was probably 7 hours long. After listening for about an hour, I kind of got used to it. And my husband was watching a video one time with some colleagues, and I was going, oh my God, it was so bad. I mean, it was actually quite bad. They couldn't give a toss. They didn't bother them. They just listened to it and they commented on it afterwards. So I think there are those of us out there, and I would love to think that people will always want to use the human voice. My God. And because otherwise, if we let AI get too out of control, we're going to lose all the creatives. It affects everything. But personally, I do think there are now companies that used to use me. I should actually go and email them and say, by the way, do you use AI? But I do think if you've got the choice of getting it for virtually free or using me, you're going to choose nearly free.
We're having a party.
Mike Cass was one of those bosses that I always wanted to work for, and was never lucky enough. Yeah, I mean, what is it about Mike Cass that makes him so good?
He's an incredible orator. So he will just, off the cuff, speak, and just you're enthralled. And he's so passionate. Still, after all these years, I don't know how long he's been in radio, 30 years? He'll hate me for that if it's not as long. But certainly 20, 25. And yet still his passion is infectious, and And he's a lovely guy, but it's the passion that gets me. Like, I was going to say something which I don't know whether I should.
on.
Okay, well, I was a little bit sort of like, gosh, I'm spending way too long prepping for this show. So I was like, damn it, I'm just gonna sort of do it as quickly as I can. And then we were in a meeting last week on Zoom, and he gave the most impassioned speech, and I thought, you bastard. You've infected me with your passion, and there's no way I'm not going to put as much effort and, sort of passion into what I'm doing for my show, because and to be honest, I don't think I would have followed through even if I hadn't heard his speech. But he's just one of those guys who just injects you with enthusiasm with his voice. Clever bugger.
And I'm guessing, are you presenting that from home? Is it pre-recorded from home as well, is it?
Yes, it's from here.
From the Sally studio.
Yeah. So, and like I said, so I've just changed. I've gone from, I was doing the afternoons, and I've just done a swap with the lovely Stuart Elmore. And I'm doing, straight after Chris now, and then Stu's after.
Amazing.
And I love it.
Let me just go through some of the other things that Cam really wanted me to bring up about you.
Yeah.
At Red Dragon, Cam and your producer, Stevie Jingles, would change your Facebook birthday to that day. And apparently they did it too many times and it wouldn't let her change it back. That's you. Apologies. So to this day, you're a bit like the Queen. You do have two birthdays, one real and one Facebook one. Is that true?
No. Again, I love this. I love being able to prove him wrong. No, what it is now, they did it so often, I've got no birthday on Facebook. So and John, the thing is, so for the last however many years, no one ever wishes me happy birthday on Facebook because it doesn't come up as a notification, apart from one gorgeous listener, Dave Wilcox from Galaxy 101, who every year posts on my birthday, happy birthday, but no one else on Facebook. And it's like a game. I want to say to Dave, don't bloody do it, because actually now I'm quite proud of the fact that I never get a birthday mention, because they essentially deleted, they deleted my birthday off Facebook, but I'm fine with that because I don't like a fuss. But yeah, I love the fact that his stories are so
well, I mean,
they're slightly right but not quite.
Yeah, the stories kind of change over the years, don't they? We've all got those. He also said that you used to do the legendary 10 to 9 traffic update, which would involve listeners deciding how you should do the traffic, and 9 times out of 10 it would be as a porn star.
Porn star, Marilyn Monroe. It was the worst idea, and I remember, again, it was one of those ones. So we've been doing it and people loved it for some bizarre reason. I'm really bad at accents, but it was bizarre. And then I remember Cormac McMahon, who is the best newsreader in the whole wide world, came through one time, and there'd been an awful accident, and someone had said, guys, you're reading the M4, there's been a serious crash, like a porn star. Do you really think that's appropriate? And it was like, so what we used to do, if there's anything serious, we do the serious bit, and then I'd go into the porn star. It wasn't always, but he says porn star. It was mostly, the whole breathy Marilyn Monroe thing. That was, and basically that was I'd fall onto that because it was like, oh God, I can't do Bugs Bunny. Can I do Marilyn Monroe again? So, yeah. That was, what a weird. But again, it's that thing of who thought that would become as big as it did, to read the travel in the style of a really crap Matthew McConaughey.
What has been your highlight throughout your whole career, radio career?
Oh, God. Oh, that's too big a question. John, what's yours?
I think mine is, I never thought I'd get on a station the size of BRMB. I mean, it wasn't the huge station it was in the olden days, as they told me, some of the old crew. But yeah, I never thought I'd get on BRMB, and I got on breakfast, and I was blown away by that. So that's probably my biggest achievement.
Yeah. Okay.
I've given you time to think now, Sally. So what's yours?
You say that this is like the Johnny Vaughan. What do you want on your gravestone? I want to just say all the interviews. I love the fact that I got to interview Minnie Driver and think we were going to be best mates. We obviously weren't. Pink was bloody brilliant. Robbie Williams. They allowed him to smoke in the studio. They took down the smoke alarms.
No,
because they heard it was the first interview we did with him. And he was like, halfway through, he went, I can't believe they've let me do this. Of course I'd have not smoked for the entire interview. Me and Cam, because I smoked in those days, we all sat there fagging it in the studio. It was hilarious. And the same with Pink. I love, and especially now that my kids, sorry, this is a really big answer to your very small question, and it's not answering your question. But I love, so when I was pregnant with Dill, my son, we interviewed Amy Winehouse, and he loves, now that he's 17, he loves to say that he's met Amy Winehouse of sorts, because he was in my belly. So I love the fact that my kids are of an age now where they can go, Will Smith, and I'm bragging, but no, it just makes me cool in their eyes. So it's, and with their friends, I'm cool. So that's my proudest achievement, is that I'm kind of cool.
You did get to interview all the A-listers, didn't you?
We really did. Again, you'd never do. I don't know what happens. I mean, I think that obviously breakfast shows get stars to go in, but big, as in Virgin Radio, but local stations wouldn't get to interview the big stars. So I think we were in the best. Other than the 70s and the 80s, we were in the best time to be on radio, because you got those opportunities to either have them come into the studio or you go up to London. And how lucky am I? What a bloody career, considering I didn't want to get into it.
I know. That's the most frustrating thing. There'll be so many people listening to this going,
I know, hating me for that.
No, they won't hate you. They'll love you. But they'll be thinking, hang on, we dreamt of doing everything that Sally did. This is not fair.
Yeah.
What about regrets? Any regrets, Sally?
Many, many, many. Not being sober for Sophie Ellis-Bextor on our birthday party, but also, yes, I have to say, and this, pick up all the names that I've dropped. We interviewed JK from Jamiroquai at his house, and lovely guy, and we were doing it in his pub. And he asked us to stay for a party afterwards that involved the pool, and God knows what else would have been involved. But I said no.
Why?
I know. I'm trying to think if that was when I had children. Or I don't think it was. That's a terrible thing. I can't really remember. I remember just thinking, no, I shouldn't. And what a mass! I could kick myself, and I will take that to my grave. No. It is a big regret, though.
That's what should have been on your gravestone. Should have gone to JK's party.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be it. But yeah, I mean, God, can you imagine the fun that would have been? So yeah, that I would say is the biggest... the biggest thing that I wish I'd said. I'm a maybe and manana girl, and I wish I'd been more of a yes girl then, and just gone, yes, I will stay.
Sally, thank you so much for being on Crunch and Roll.
It has been my absolute pleasure. I've loved it. I'm sorry if I've talked too much, but I have absolutely loved this. Thank you.
I'm not just saying this, but I now know why Kevin and Cam absolutely love you, because I've spent an hour with you and you're brilliant. Like, I just... I genuinely mean what I said. I don't think you are an anorak. I said it before, but you were just doing it for the giggles and the money, of course, as we all did. But I love that about you, because it's you weren't taking it too seriously, were you?
No, God, no. No, not at all. Is that my magic? Is that what it is?
I think there is some magic in that, because I've worked with other co-presenters who took it far too seriously, and that ripped out the fun, and it's essentially what we did on breakfast shows. It was all about just having a bit of fun in the morning, wasn't it?
Definitely, absolutely, yeah. And life you shouldn't take seriously either, work and life.
Well, may I suggest, if you want a little side hustle, you could be Positive Sally, and people just call you and Zoom you like I have, just for 10 minutes. You'll put a smile on their face, and life's good again.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so lovely.
No,
I love
thank
you.
Well, would you be so kind? I mean, hang on. I think you must be one of a handful of professional voiceover artists that has actually done the end credits. Many people in the industry go on to try, but not as many succeed like yourself. So would you be so kind as to take us away with the end credits, please?
I would love to. No pressure. You've been listening to Crunch and Roll with me, Sally Bailey. Subscribe on your favourite podcast app to get every new. Oh my God! There you go. You pointed the finger of doom at me.
Yes, that's what I said.
Shall I start from the top? You've been listening to Crunch and Roll with me, Sally Bailey. Subscribe on your favourite podcast app to get every new episode as soon as they drop. Crunch and Roll is a 969 media production presented by John Fox and produced by Simon Borzowski. Can I do that again?
Sally, one more question before you go.
Yeah.
Who was your favourite, Cam or Kev?
You can't ask me that. No, you can't. No, and actually, right. That's very naughty. Obviously, I had the longer relationship with Cam.
Yeah.
They were very different relationships. How lucky am I that I worked with two of the sweetest, loveliest, non-ego guys. And radio's full of men with egos, but actually those two, not really. No, I'm not going to choose. That's really naughty, John. And I don't love you anymore.